Hello again all! Welcome back to the Knowledge Tower, where we investigate the science behind the Bionicle legend. In this special festive edition, we will be applying our calculators to the myths surrounding the Matoran celebration of Naming Day on the island city of Metru-Nui. In Matoran culture, Naming Day is a biannual holiday in which Matoran who have performed great deeds are given new names in celebration of their actions. On Metru-Nui, the celebrations also meant a day off work for the Matoran, with special events held in each metru to celebrate the day. A culture of gift-giving was also part of the festivities, with Matoran legend stating that the Great Spirit Mata-Nui would ride through the Chute system each naming day, giving out presents to all good Matoran. This was of course simply a myth, a nice story the Matoran told each other as part of the act of gift-giving that had become synonymous with naming day. But what if it weren't? What if an avatar of Mata-Nui really did give out gifts on naming day to the Matoran population of Metru-Nui? Could all those presents really be delivered in just one day? And how long would he get to spend with each Matoran before having to move on to the next? Let's find out. First of all, we need to establish just how many Matoran Mata-Nui will need to deliver presents to. The exact number of Matoran that lived within the city of Metru-Nui was never exactly defined within the Bionicle storyline, with quotes from Greg simply stating that the population was in the thousands, so we will have to do some estimating to arrive at a satisfactory figure. The exact definition of a city in the real world is rather fuzzy, with the definition changing depending on where you are and at what point in human history you are attempting to apply the definition. The modern definition of a city, as defined by the World Bank, states that a city needs to have a minimum of 50,000 inhabitants at a population density of at least 1,500 people per square kilometre. However, this definition is not used everywhere. In the United Kingdom, for example, the granting of city status to an urban area has historically been allocated at the discretion of the Crown, and urban areas have generally retained that status even when population changes and other definitions of cities have changed. This has led to areas with populations as low as 1,800 people still being defined as a city by the national government. With no way of knowing what kind of method for defining a city that the Matoran used, we would need to find a different method for this investigation if we are going to estimate the population of Metru-Nui. Luckily, we know from the Bionicle story that the population of Metru-Nui was split up into 6 villages after the evacuation to the island of Mata-Nui during the Great Rescue, and the population size of a village is much more widely agreed upon between geographers. Villages are generally thought of as having between 500 and 2,500 inhabitants, so let's use that as our initial size range. In fact, let's use the upper limit of 2,500 inhabitants per village in order to maximise our population size and get closer to what could reasonably be considered a city. With 2,500 Matoran per metru, this would give Metru-Nui a population of 15,000 Matoran in total. Also, we are going to say that every Matoran in the city gets a present from the Great Spirit, as trying to figure out what percentage of the population Mata-Nui would consider good or bad is straying a bit too far away from the science for the purposes of this video. Of course, 15,000 Matoran are a lot of beings to give presents to. How much space would all those presents take up? Chutes can range in size after all, so Mata-Nui will need to carefully plan which chutes to ride in order to efficiently make his deliveries. Let's assume that each Matoran gets a present that could fit inside a standard shoebox, 35 cm long, 23.5 cm wide, and 13.5 cm tall. That's big enough to hold some new tools, memory crystals, or a whole host of other potential presents that a Matoran could want. Altogether, 15,000 of these boxes would take up 1,721 cubic meters of space, or around 23 standard shipping containers worth. Smaller chutes are therefore out of the picture. Mata-Nui needs to travel the cargo chutes for this delivery run. Now, as the name would suggest, Naming Day takes place over the course of a single Matoran universe day, giving Mata-Nui 36 hours in which to deliver his presents. But given that Mata-Nui travels the Chute system on naming day instead of, say, delivering presents to the Matoran in their homes, let's restrict the present giving period to daylight hours only, when Matoran traffic within the Chutes would be at its highest. Assuming an equal amount of daylight to nighttime hours, that gives Mata-Nui 18 hours in total in which to make his deliveries. But how long would that give him to make each individual delivery? Well, dividing the available hours by the number of Matoran, that gives Mata-Nui a maximum of 4.32 seconds per delivery. Given that part of that time would also have to include travel between each Matoran before and after the delivery itself, as well as locating the right present from the 23 storage containers travelling along with him, that leaves a very fleeting contact with the Great Spirit for the Matoran of Metru-Nui, but certainly one that is greatly important to each resident of the city. If we assume that the Chute system runs at a similar speed to real-world high-speed railways, then Mata-Nui would be travelling through the Chutes at around 250 km per hour, being able to travel the length of Metru-Nui 69 times over the course of his 18-hour delivery run. With the 4.23 second time limit per Matoran, Mata-Nui and his cargo would be travelling an average of 294 metres through the Chutes per delivery. If a Matoran of Metru-Nui ever ran the numbers, perhaps they would question the feasibility of such a delivery run. Then again, in a world where a simple mask can allow someone to travel at over Mach 6, maybe they wouldn't. This is the Great Spirit after all. He can do anything.